Hey guys, it's DT back on the channel with another big unboxing video. A lot of you guys know I've been doing a lot of these unboxing videos on my other channel, DT's Geek Show, but I know we've got a lot of Transformers fans who watch this channel, so I thought I'd do this one over here. This is the XM Studios 1/10 scale Grimlock. If you guys aren't familiar with Grimlock, he was basically my favorite toy as a kid. Not only was he a transforming robot, but he changed into a dinosaur, making him pretty much the perfect toy for any 10-year-old boy and girls who are into Transformers and dinosaurs. But he was big, he was cool, he was a Transformer, and he had a bunch of friends called the Dinobots who would transform into other dinosaurs. So we've done all the other Transformers in this line on this channel. We had Optimus Prime, Starscream, Megatron, Bumblebee, and now we have the biggest one in the line, Grimlock. So we have this huge box based on the original G1 packaging. This one came in two very large boxes. Each of them weighed over 80 pounds, so this guy is gonna be a monster. We've got Grimlock stats right here on the side. He's a very powerful character. He's got a 10 in strength, a 10 in endurance, a 10 for courage, and a 10 for skill. The only thing he really lacks is speed. His function is the Dinobot Commander, and his quote is, "Among the winners, there is no room for the weak." We've got a lot of things to open up, so let's get right to the unboxing. Okay guys, so I think we're gonna start off with the bigger of the two boxes. This box alone weighs about 90 pounds. Let's take a look. Okay guys, and there you go. Woo, that's a lot of pieces. We also get our little plaque. This is the Transformers Grimlock Limited Edition. So all of these Transformers pieces come with an alt mode, and here we have a very detailed T-Rex. Of course, this one isn't to scale. It's quite a bit smaller than Grimlock. It's kind of just there as a little reference. He comes with a pair of hind legs, a couple little lightweight front arms, and then we display him on these little hex coasters, I like to call them. They're these little stands with the felt bottom. Grimlock has several different switch outs. This is one of them. This is a left-hand switch out holding this big shotgun. In his right hand, he can be holding this giant sword. We got all those little teeth in there. This right here is part of another weapon. I believe these go on his back. These almost fit on him like wings. A T-Rex claw right there. Pretty cool. We get two of these, one for each side. Then we have some of these little plates. I'm not sure where they go, but there are 4 of them. And then finally in this layer, we have the portrait. It's a kind of a modernized take on Grimlock, which is what I love about this line. I know some of the purists don't really like it, but I think it's awesome. We've got some texture on the red eyes. If we lift this off, we can give him his brain. Looks like we'll need 3 of those 1.5 volt batteries. They fit in just like this. There's a little switch right here on the side. Boom. We've got the glowing red eyes. He only comes with one portrait. All the other Transformers I have came with multiple ones, but hopefully this one gets the job done. Let's move on to the next layer. Okay guys, and here's what we have in the bottom layer. So let's go ahead and take a look at this monstrous base. It's a big one, not quite as big as that Devastator that I unboxed, not quite as big as the XM Sentinel, but definitely a big one. And it's heavy too. So this is all I'm gonna get to show you right now. Pretty cool base. We'll take a closer look at it later when I can put it on the table. This thing is too heavy. We've got another one of these Cybertronian little designs for the base. Here we have one of the right arms. Awesome looking paint job. Then we have a couple empty hands, very similar to what we've seen on the other Transformers in this line. So that's gonna do it for box 1. Let's move on to box number 2. This one weighs a little more than 80 pounds, so a little bit lighter, but still a very heavy box. Looks like somebody sat on the middle of this one. Here are our Grimlock parts. Here we have another arm, very similar to the other arm that I showed you. This one is bent at the elbow, more at a right angle. Different left arm this time. Then we've got 3 of these pieces. I'm not really sure what they are. They look like they cover up something. Look at this thing. Whoa. Here on the back, we've got some hydraulics, more of that honeycomb pattern. Here's a look at the other one. This one's a little bit more straight. The handle of the mace. And then finally, we have the torso. And just as expected, this thing is very heavy. Here we have the nice shiny Autobot logo right there on his chest, segmented midsection. And what's adding so much to the weight of this thing is this giant T-Rex head on the back. And that's how you transform the toy. You would actually kind of pop the T-Rex head and flip it backwards. So it would actually be facing the other direction, I believe, on the toy. You kind of see the nostrils there, the eyeball. I'll give you guys a little speed build on this channel if you guys want to see the full assembly like I do with all these other giant robot statues. You can check that out on my other channel, DT's Geek Show. I'm gonna go ahead, get these pieces on the table before my back gives out, and we'll put this thing together. So here he is, XM Studios, Grimlock. So Grimlock made his first comic book appearance way back in 1985 in Transformers number 8. Here we can see him on the cover with a couple of his other Dinobot buddies, Slag and Sludge. Before we get on to the review, I just have to say that this is my new favorite piece in my collection. It is truly a marvel, so let's go ahead and break it down. So we've got a very similarly themed Cybertronian base that we've gotten with the other Transformers pieces in this line. We have these very spaceship-like pieces, this hexagonal pattern on the floor. We have sort of like a volcanic-looking rock. It looks almost like a melted moon rock. We also get these coil-like pieces. All these metal mechanical strips have a real organic feel to them, almost like they're alive, like living tentacles. And I think that's one of the appeals for me with this Transformers line, is that you have these massive metal monsters, but the movement in them is very fluid and very human-like. They don't look like the clunky toys that only moved in certain directions. The paint on these turbines is just fantastic. Now, the one little nitpick that I have about the base is the rock. It lacks some of the definition that I would have loved to see. It looks a little bit too smooth in places. Very small nitpick when you look at this thing as a whole. Obviously, your eyes are not going to be drawn to the rock when you look at this piece. You're going to be looking at this magnificent robot. I mean, we've got all these little mechanical parts. We've got the detail in the knees. We've got these little rocket engines on the back, the hydraulic ankles. The paint job is on par with the rest of the line. He does have smaller upper legs, however, they are quite a bit fleshed out compared to the old G1 toy, where they were pretty much very rectangular plastic pieces. But here we can see they have a lot of shape to them, some nice metal plating details. Up here in his hip socket, we can see some copper wiring. They almost look like stretched tendons in there. Moving on to his torso, we have the segmented abdominal plates. Some more cool details around his sides. I think those are to simulate the intercostal muscles. But up in front, we've got the Autobot emblem. It's kind of got a glossy mirrored finish. I love the weathering on it to make it look a little bit worn. Same great detailing in his arms. We've got the little rockets at his shoulders. You can see some more of that copper wiring on the interior portions. Of course, Grimlock's arms are actually the hind legs of the T-Rex. You can actually see the T-Rex claws right here in his wrist, and the toy itself would just have a little lever and the hand would just punch right through. So the one thing that's kind of missing as far as transformation goes is the tail portions that would come off of the legs. Basically, when you transformed him, you would flip down his lower body. His tail would split into two. One tip would hang over one leg, the other tip would hang over the other. But it's missing here, and you know, I don't really mind it. I think it would take away from the streamlined nature of this statue, but I'm sure the purists will have something to say about it. The connection of his arms to his body look really good. We have all these little lug nuts attaching his arm. So the upper portion of his arm actually looks like it's on some kind of ball joint. Of course, it's solidly sculpted, but I love the illusion that it gets that this arm can actually rotate around. Moving on to the back, we have these giant wings. This is actually the upper torso and neck area of the T-Rex. His whole chest would kind of open up, his arms would split off to the side, and the whole chest area would become these wings. We have these claws at the top that look like they are retracted into the wing portion. We can see all this little venting, almost as if it was some kind of rocket pack. We have his giant T-Rex head here. I think that looks fantastic. As I mentioned, it's a little bit different than how the toy was. When you had the toy, the head would just kind of flip up and back. So his head would actually be reversed, and you would see the bottom of his chin rather than the top of his snout here. I think they made a wise decision. It looks way cooler this way, more like a backpack. We've got the head. I know some of the G1 fans don't really like these Transformers heads because they are not 100% G1 accurate, but I don't mind it, just like I don't mind the liberties they take with the overall design. It looks enough like Grimlock to me. It looks like a cooler version of the Grimlock I had as a kid. Of course, the light up feature is awesome. I don't use them much, but definitely brings out the shape and texture in his eyes. I wish there was another head option, maybe not a completely different head, but one that would allow you to turn it just slightly. That way his head wouldn't be in such a profile. So now let's take a look at some of these other display options. Right now he's in his biggest mode. We've got the big shotgun here in his left arm, which makes him super wide, and we have the sword, which makes him super deep and wide. Both very menacing looking. That sword is on another level with all those little teeth in there, the little spikes on the handle. These are kind of the items that sold me on this piece when I first saw it. I love how his right arm is angled downward a little bit. That way it really lets you see the blade and the details of the sword, and it also doesn't block his upper torso. And if I was to pick the ideal pose, it would be something like this, with him pointing the gun sort of towards the viewer. That way he's opened up, we can see his entire body, we can see his face. I'll go ahead and show you guys the other options here. If you didn't want the giant sword, we can take his whole arm off. We can give him his mace. And his hand would just go back like this. You're gonna save quite a bit on the depth. It looks like it might be a little bit taller with this option. It's still very cool from this front view. One of the things people were concerned about was that the end of the mace there is pretty heavy, and even though there's a metal rod running down the handle, people were still concerned that it might bend over time. So one of the solutions was to rotate this every now and then. Could also choke up a little bit on the handle. It doesn't look quite as good. That would alleviate some of the weight on that handle. Suppose you don't have the width or the depth to display this mighty gun. We can go ahead and swap it out. And as you can see, if we use this arm, it doesn't take up quite as much room. This is a very cool option, not quite as dynamic, not quite as imposing, but still would look fantastic displayed like this. And finally, we have our alt mode. This, of course, is Grimlock as the T-Rex, and this thing looks fantastic as well. I think people would actually buy this thing by itself. We've got some of the same details that we see on the statue represented in this. Very high quality, very heavy weight. I love all the little segments down his tail, up his spine, the armored appearance of his legs and head. If we turn him up like this, we can actually see Grimlock's torso right here. The head on this thing is crazy. We've got red eyes. We can see all the little teeth, a metallic tongue on the inside. We've got the spikes on the back of his head, the red details on his snout. Just a fantastic companion piece. And obviously the biggest drawback for a Transformers toy fan would be that this guy doesn't transform. Well, this is the next best option. We have his alternate mode standing right next to it. Okay guys, so there you have it. That was the XM Studios 1/10 scale Grimlock statue. My favorite statue in my collection. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? What would you change about it? Now I'm gonna go disassemble this thing so I can move it to its final location. Make sure to head over to my other channel, DT's Geek Show, to see more of this cool stuff. We've got the Marvel, the DC. I talk about comic books, Funko Pops, other types of collectibles, pop culture, you name it. Head over there and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.